Martinez in there. Great game. 50 seconds to go. Hurts. Deep shot. Hauled in. Devontae.
Sure. Before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is.
He's just picking the big guys. Jordan Mailata, he's huge. He'll be good later on. Josh Sweat, he's tall as hell and strong. Let's get him. We'll figure him out. It's working.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as we are, every single Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Make sure you follow us all on social media platforms. And, of course, the road to 500 continues on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, DSM Media. And I did put a bet out there. It's not going to happen because you guys don't really want to see it. But if you want to see it, get us to 500 by Tuesday next week, and this will come off, the beard. I'll shave the beard for the first time in 15 years, whatever it's been that I haven't had a beard. I will shave it off if we get to 500 by Tuesday. That is goal. So the road to 500 continues. Like I said, we're live here on DSM Media. We're brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products, the GOAT in below-the-waist maintenance. Make sure you check them out. Manscaped.com. Use promo code TRENDING, name of the show, TRENDING, at checkout. It gets you 20% off and free shipping, but it also lets them know that we sent you at DSM Media. Lets them know that we're doing our job in promoting their great products. So make sure you check them out. And like I said, I keep saying we're getting closer and closer to Christmas. The holidays are here. Make sure you check them out because it's a great present, great thing to put under the tree for everybody. So make sure you check them out. Again, I'm Phil Stiefel. I'm your host. Jeremy's still on his 2-week hiatus for work purposes. You can make sure you follow me at Bearded Knowledge. But my partner, my co-host today, Jason Voorhees at Mustang3651, co-host of Sports and Metal, co-host of Drunk on Ice podcast. What's up, buddy? How you doing today?
What's up? Excited to be here as always, man.
Excited to have a guest on board with me today. We're gonna call this episode Take Two. So we're gonna have a little Flyers talk, Take Two here today. I know you're deep involved with all the Flyers and all the stuff going on there between all the podcasts and sites you work with. So we're gonna talk Flyers, the coaching changes, the upheaval, what's up with the Flyers. Then we're gonna talk a little bit of Sixers. Got a game tonight, a little preview of tonight's game. A lot of trade rumors circulating with the Sixers yesterday as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline and more teams decide to move things around and whether they're selling or buying. Lots happening in the NBA. So we'll talk a little bit about the Sixers afterwards. But we got to get into the Flyers first. Wanted to talk about it a little yesterday. Flyers are not my specialty. That's why I've got you here, because that's your specialty. Obviously, yesterday morning, Flyers made 2 mornings ago, they made the big news that they fired their head coach, AV. They fired their assistant coach, Turian. The start of the changeover with the Philadelphia Flyers has begun. And you've talked about it before on this show, about how, I don't even want to use the word mediocre they are, but just how much they're floundering around as a franchise. So initially, I think I can guess your answer. It was the right call to fire AV the other day, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Unfortunately, the coaching span in the NHL is already at a minimum. Mm-hmm. And when you have a scenario or a situation like the Flyers where, the team is basically, use the perfect word, floundering.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't think of a better word. It's a weird word to use for it, but I think it fits.
It's a perfect word because it's exactly what the Flyers have been doing. And I hate when people say, I hate when there's, this notion that it's always the coach's fault, because I got to be honest about it. I don't think this is necessarily Alain Vigneault's fault, because if you look at this team, how many coaches have we been through over the past, X amount of years? There's major issues of dysfunction in this organization. Mm-hmm. And it starts at the top. We all know that. We kind of have the same thing when we talk about the Eagles. I mean, where there's issues, and issues always begin at the top. And that's the problem with this organization. So to answer your question, yes, I think it was the right move, obviously, to get rid of AV. I don't think it was his fault. but he definitely lost the team. Nobody.
I mean, let's be honest. AV is a really good NHL hockey coach. I mean, it was just 2 years ago that he was second in the Jack Adams. That's the Coach of the Year award for the NHL. He was second in the voting process for that. So he is a well-respected, good head coach. So what went wrong? How did he lose this team?
Well, and we can kind of go back to where, what I've been kind of saying on multiple shows as far as why the Flyers are continuing to struggle, on a normal basis. Obviously, if you go back to that year, just 2 years ago, I would say that team overachieved as far as, they were, they put together a fine season. I mean, obviously it was all weird because of the COVID. Right. Remember, the season kind of shut down, the rest
then restarted back up, and
started back up, and it was in the summer, so it was and it was in a bubble. Right. So a lot of those circumstances were different, but that team did gel, and they were playing. That's the difference. See, if this team had a lack of talent, but they were playing as a team and showing up like that team did, it's possible in the NHL to be a lower level talent team and do well. But you have to play. You have to have heart. And this team, that's really what has been frustrating watching this team, is that we came out with such high expectations. I remember you had me on your, I believe it was before the first week of the season.
Right.
My expectations of what Chuck Fletcher did in the offseason, I expected that this team was going to be, I'm not saying they were vying for a cup, because I did say they were going to struggle in the division because they're still not one of the better teams. Right. But I expected improvement, and we saw improvement in those first 2 weeks.
Right.
But then it kind of went off the rails. So, I mean,
and you kind of already touched on it. Chuck Fletcher, he's the boss. He's the one pulling the strings. I kind of feel like in all sports, not just in hockey, the GM kind of gets the longer leash. And I think it's unfortunate because this team is the team that Chuck Fletcher built. Yes, we had different expectations for what he did in the offseason, but shouldn't he be held just as accountable as AV for the mess that we're in, for the fact that there's, we'll get into the stats in a minute, but, when Claude Giroux's your leading goal scorer and assist getter and the leading point guy, I know the stats, how far down overall in the league he is, this is just as much his fault. But then I was talking about this on Twitter yesterday, and people are like, yeah, the GMs get the longer leash because they're more on the business side as well. They're more connected with the owner. The owners feel more of a connection with the GM versus the coach. And I get all that, because in Philly, the GMs in Philly, all Philly sports, seem to have way too long of a leash in general. Howie been here, the prime example of that. Clentac State was kept around too long, before Elton Brand. The GMs, have been, there have been GMs here way too long. So should Chuck Fletcher get more heat than he's getting for this situation?
Well,
because I don't see enough Chuck Fletcher heat right now.
I think the answer is yes and no. I will tell you what I kind of give Chuck Fletcher some heat for, and where I think he went wrong. You had a player in Jack Eichel, who is not necessarily generational, but he's one of those elite level players that we've been talking about, that this team's been starved for so long, comes available. The fact that the Flyers weren't even in that conversation, to me, is very disturbing, because that's exactly what the problem is with this team. You had the ammo. The Flyers, let's face it, the Flyers have a good, deep, I don't want to call it farm system because it's not baseball, but they have a deep,
deep reserve of young talent.
Correct. In obviously in the AHL and guys that they've drafted. They had the ammo if they wanted to make that kind of a deal, to go out and get a Jack Eichel. So for that part of me, I do kind of blame Chuck Fletcher for not being, aggressive enough. Listen, I know it's hard because of the salary cap, and I know the Flyers were kind of up against it going into this year. And he did do a fabulous job unloading some guys, like getting rid of Voracek. I love that trade. Cam Atkinson, to me, is a guy that does have a lot of heart. I mean, right now, he's probably playing as one of our best players besides Giroux. So I loved that move. I loved the Ristolainen move, getting a defenseman in here that can actually be physical. I think where I am going to give Fletcher a buy is the fact that he realistically came into this situation in an organization that Ron Hextall pretty much built. Like a lot of these young guys that we're expecting to, hopefully become I don't even want to say elite, because I don't see the Flyers right now having any guys on that level that we're talking about. Like if you look around the NHL, I mean, I'm not like I said, I know this isn't a stat podcast, and
well, no, you can throw all the stats. I love the stats. I want to hear them.
But we've talked about Giroux, and I don't know where he's exactly at now, but I know
he's got 21 points right now, 9 goals, 12 assists.
Yeah.
Your next highest guy in points is Couturier at 5 goals and 9 assists. So your top 2 guys have a combined 35 points. I would think the 2 of them combined ranks them in the top 10 or 12 in the NHL in points.
Yeah, and so let's just give some examples here. So Edmonton, Connor McDavid and Draisaitl both have 43 points. They're leading the NHL. 2 players leading the NHL on the same team. Okay. Alex Ovechkin is second, having his best year at age 38.
400. Feels like he's been playing hockey for 25 years now.
And you could just
if you're looking at the stat sheet, where's 35 points puts you in the overall ranks of overall points?
35 points?
Yeah, how far down the list?
Well, you have Ovechkin at 41, then you have Kadri at 31.
All right, so the Flyers' 2 top point guys combined are in that range. Not just 1, 2 combined. So obviously there's issues there with this team.
And I'll go a step further. So Giroux at 21 points is the Flyers' leading scorer. I believe I didn't check going into this show, but before the other day, that was 68th in the NHL.
That's not good.
Let's just do a comparison. By comparison, there are 12 teams that have multiple players in the top 50 in scoring. Top 50, if Giroux's at 68 and he's your leader, and then the next guy down is 10 points less and he's your second scorer, that should tell you all you need to know about this team. They're just not. And when I say elite talent, I'm not just talking about as an overall player. I'm talking about this team lacks scoring. Scoring this league has become a league of upper echelon players. If you look around the league, probably about 20 of the 31 teams have what I would consider an elite guy that can produce not just massive goals, but massive points totals. Basically, guys that can carry the game by themselves. Listen, it's a team sport, but let's face it. I got an argument on Twitter about this because someone was trying to compare Alex Ovechkin to Giroux in the fact that Alex Ovechkin has been through 6 coaches just like Giroux, and they were trying to say, see, Ovechkin's been through 6 coaches, but there's a big difference between Alex Ovechkin and Claude Giroux.
Even me and my minimal hockey knowledge knows that 110%.
Exactly, and that's what gets frustrating with some of the fan base in the Flyers, because there's not enough. You have to hold people accountable, and you got to be honest about the team. And
so let's be honest with the team then here. Obviously, this team is not good. We'll get into the future schedule the next couple games and when they could break this losing streak and all, but they're going with the interim coach right now, right? But there's a lot of talk that Chuck Fletcher is looking for the new head coach now. Do you think do you even think it matters? Could they just run with the interim coach for the rest of the year and try to, I don't want to say blow it up, but try to start working? Why go get a new head coach right now if this team's not, that good anyway. Is a new head coach really going to turn around this average roster and get them back into the playoffs? Is it even worth that? Isn't it smarter just to run the interim coach out there, have Fletcher start trying to move some of these guys like Giroux or Couturier, whoever it may be, start to flip this roster around, bring in some youth, bring up some of the young guys and young potential, and just use the rest of the season as a learning curve, a springboard into the future, whatever it may be. A, what do you think they should do? But B, which way do you think Fletcher will go in that scenario?
It's funny that you're saying this because Phil, you're spot on. Like you're speaking my language. Like that's where I'm at.
Like, we got into a lot of heat about blowing up the Phillies this year, so I'm not going to use the word blow up and start the Phillies drama that me and you started earlier this year.
No, but you're speaking my language. Like
right.
I'm past the point where I think it matters with the coach. I agree with you. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, I know I've heard some names floated around, and I'm kind of plugged in, so I kind of get the feeling that Tocchet is one of the main guys.
Real quick before you go on, can I just say that as an old school Flyers fan, as a guy that has seen the Flyers stick within the organization for so long, that Rick Tocchet's not the guy I want. Because it's no different than when they brought up Barbie or brought Ron Hextall back as GM or Bobby Clark. They just stuck within the organization. They kept calling it phantoms coaches and former players to be there. No. I love Rick Tocchet. He's a Flyers legend. He'll always be a favorite of mine from my childhood. But I don't know if he's the right move for this organization. I just want to throw that out there just because of his connection to the organization.
Well, you're spot on number 2.
I know. For a guy that doesn't know hockey, I'm spot on with a lot on hockey, aren't I?
I agree with that as well. And I know I'm going to get heat for it and that's a shame when you have an opinion and you get heat. But I love Rick Tocchet, the player. I loved him on the Flyers, but I am in the same boat. I do not want to rehash and keep rehashing the same thing over and over again.
It's kind of like Rick Tocchet would be a hiring to kind of invigorate Flyers fans, not the team itself, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Our favorite guy from the 90s is going to be here. So, we'll go cheer him on and, he'll bring that energy and whatnot. But that's not good for the big picture of the organization, in my opinion.
No. And
I don't even know what kind of a coach he is.
Well, with that
honestly, I have no idea what kind of a coach he is.
Well, he coached an Arizona team that's the doormat. Arizona's like worse than Buffalo. Like,
right.
So it's hard for me to judge a coach when you're on a team that's so bad and inept from the top down. So I'm not going to judge Rick Tocchet on his, what he did as a coach, because I really don't think he was in good positions where he was at. But to that point, the other guy that I've heard, being thrown around is John Tortorella.
Mm-hmm.
I like John Tortorella, but I don't think going to him right now is going to make a difference in this team. I'm with you. I think that
if you're going to sign Tortorella, just wait till the offseason.
Exactly. And
let them rebuild this team now, because he's a guy, I mean, what's he got, like 20 years of coaching experience? He's won a cup. He's made – I actually looked him up before yesterday's show, which we really didn't talk too much about it. In 20 years, he's made the playoffs 13 times as a head coach. This team's not making the playoffs. So, there's no need for that level of a head coach with this roster.
No, and I think the guy that I have my eye on is currently coaching another team. So I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. I don't know if that guy is going to get fired mid-season, but I know their team is struggling, and that guy is Barry Trotz, the coach of the Islanders.
Okay, yeah.
I think if they continue to struggle, he could be gone, and that'd be the guy that I would target.
Okay.
He's I know everyone says they want a no-nonsense guy. I mean, AV was a no-nonsense guy, and look what that got them. Like, I want a guy that's going to preach offense and preach, being aggressive with, getting the best out of your players. And that, to me, is a guy like Barry Trotz. I mean, obviously, you saw what he did with Washington.
Yeah.
They finally got over the hump when he was there. So, But let's move past the coaching because I agree. I think you go with Mike Yeo. Let's
and Mike Yeo has coaching experience. It's not like he's some assistant, 21-year-old that's never been on a bench before. I mean, he's got experience for sure.
Yeah, I think you let him kind of just coach this season out. I think Chuck Fletcher absolutely has to start looking to, and I know we use the term blow it up, and like you said, I don't want to get like people, coming at us in the
although you say blow up the Phillies and trade Bryce Harper and all, did turn Bryce Harper's season around and he won an MVP. So maybe if you just blast Claude Giroux right now, live on this air, maybe all of a sudden Claude Giroux will be the MVP of the NHL.
Well, the funny thing is when AV got fired, I put out a tweet about Giroux being coach kill. Yeah, the
coach killer. Yeah. I saw that.
I had a bunch of people in my
So maybe that's the start of turning around.
But here's the thing about Giroux. Everyone gets it wrong with me. I love Claude Giroux, and I think Claude Giroux is a great player. He's not an elite player. He's not, dude. He's had one season of 30 goals. I mean,
so the question on Giroux is he even tradable? Like, if you're going to try to move some of these guys, will you get any decent value from a playoff contender for a guy like Claude Giroux?
Yes, I definitely think you can get. I don't think
real. I'm not talking about getting. I'm talking about getting a guy like in baseball terms, like a top prospect for Claude Giroux.
Well, the move that I've been looking for the Flyers to make, and I kind of shared this on the Drunk on Ice show. It was kind of some inside info that I had got from somebody I know.
That you with insiders now.
Well, when you start kind of working for organization to cover the team. So the guy was talking to one of the St. Louis beat writers, and apparently Chuck Fletcher has been looking kind of on the phones with St. Louis. And that's nothing that's kind of a secret. Like, Tarasenko's name's been out there for a while. It's just St. Louis hasn't been able to trade him. That's a guy that I do think would make sense for the Flyers because he's a guy that can put the puck in the net. He's not young. I believe he's close to 30. It would kind of be like a flip-flop, but you would be getting a fresh face in the locker room. Right. Giroux would be kind of going to a team where maybe he could win a cup. Like, let's face it. Like I said, I love Claude Giroux, the person.
He's been here for a long time. I mean, he's been a key part of this organization for a long, long time.
You can be critical of anybody player and still like them. That's okay, and that's acceptable. But unfortunately, sometimes in this fan base, it's not.
Right. Who else outside of Claude Giroux, out of the big names that could bring you some form of return, who else are you looking at as potential, trade candidates to just not just like you said, a fresh face, maybe bring in some youth, maybe bring in some more scoring, whatever it may be. What other names are you looking at on the Flyers roster that you would be considering to move right now?
Well, I see it's weird because I'm not a big prospect guy, so I don't know how this prospect pool is looking this year. But if I'm Chuck Fletcher and I know that I really, I know the fan base doesn't want to hear it, but they really do need to rebuild. Like, I think you've seen this team just go so long with Giroux, hoping that Giroux in a prayer. Basically, like, you surrounded him with nobody and you wanted to win a cup, and you haven't been able to do that in the 10 years that he's been here. It's time. Like, ladies and gentlemen, something has to give. Like, you can't keep going this way and saying, well, this team is eventually going to get to where. No, they're not. Because you're seeing kinks in the armor right now that you didn't see earlier in the year. A la, the defense is playing terrible. The defense was in the first 2 weeks of the season, you were like, oh my God, all these moves Fletcher made, it was an A.
Right.
But now you're starting to see that it's not necessarily even just the moves that he made, that there are some underlying issues with some of these guys that we were maybe higher on than we should have been. Guys like Ivan Provorov, who is playing like dog shit right now. Absolutely playing terrible. I don't know if he's hurt, but he's basically taken nosedive. Travis Sanheim, I haven't been big on him since day one. He's a guy that has the big body that you would think would play like a Ristolainen, and he kind of, tucks his
All right, yeah.
He's just not. He's not the answer to me.
Okay.
You got rid of Philip Myers, who I actually liked Philip Myers.
Right.
You got rid of Gustasphere, who, let's face it, you got rid of him, and now look at it. He has like 20 points. He's like, I think, the third best defenseman in as far as points in the NHL. So once again, a guy that we get rid of in Philly goes on to another team, and
Claude Giroux's going to be an MVP somewhere else. Is basically what you're going to say.
So when you see those kind of things, you wonder if it is the coaching. So it's like weird with any kind of sport thing, because at one party it says, well, it's not the coach, it's the players. But then you see players go to other teams and do well. Well, then how could it not be the coach? So I don't know. I just know that Chuck Fletcher definitely has to start looking to move some of these guys. I mean, we mentioned Giroux. I would hate to say it, but Sean Couturier has been a very big disappointment. You signed him to
5 goals, 9 assists. That's not good.
Sean Couturier, I know he brings a lot to the team more than just points. Like he is one of the best defensive-minded offensive guys in the NHL. I mean, he won the award, so he's not a slouch, but he is a guy that you're paying him $8.5 million. He should be putting up more, as far as production. I think you got to just start looking maybe to acquire picks, try to get some first rounders, and try to actually make a good judgment call on who you're drafting. Because what this tells me is that as much that praise that we give Ron Hextall, and as much praise as we give the organization of, they built a stockpile of young guys. Right. Well, none of these young guys are becoming the elite players that we absolutely need. Right. So
it's kind of comparable to the Phillies, all those first round draft picks we had, those top 5 picks, and the Mickey Moniaks and the Cornelius Randolphs, they just didn't pan out. Is there a scenario, though, where Chuck Fletcher makes 1 or 2 little moves? Obviously, we lost, yesterday, or the first game without, AV as the coach, 7-5 to Colorado. But that was kind of like, it was like a whirlwind day. I didn't actually expect them to come out and play well in that game or anything like that. Is there a scenario where, we're 9 points out of the last wild card spot, I think it is, when I looked yesterday morning? Is there a scenario, whether it's an interim coach or they bring somebody else in, where with some minor tweaks, maybe a Giroux for another player, just, change of scenery, all of a sudden this team flips a switch and all of a sudden it starts playing better? And, it's the NHL. It's a long season. You can go on a run and come out of nowhere and make a run. Is there a scenario where that's even possible for this team?
Oh, you've seen plenty of examples in not just the NHL, in any league where teams have kind of come on after, a coaching change, making maybe a couple of tweaks to the roster. It's absolutely possible, but I think you have to be realistic of where the Flyers are in the East. Now I will say the Flyers' schedule does get a lot easier coming up.
Let's just look at that. Their next 6 games, they're on the road for the next 3. They got the Devils, the Vegas Knights, Arizona, back to the Devils again, Montreal, and Ottawa. They're your next 6 games.
Yeah, so if you look at the prior 5 games where they played Tampa twice, played Boston, they played all these good teams, their schedule is getting easier. So this, to me, is the time where if you wanted to make some headway, now's the time.
Make some headway now, and then how they do in the next 5 or 6 games
see where you're at.
What you do the rest of the season.
Yes, I think it's definitely, let's get through this next stretch of games, get through Christmas, see where this team is at, and kind of assess, and then at that point make a judgment on whether you're going to go for another coach, or if you're going to make some changes. But obviously, we agree. I think we all agree change is needed. Right. I've been preaching it. I've been saying it for a long time, and I know it's not going to happen. But I wish Comcast would sell, because their organization is tone deaf, just like John Middleton and the Phillies. It's the same thing. you have an ownership group. It's not that they don't have money. The Flyers are one of the most profitable NHL teams in the league. They're one of the most profitable organizations
because of how loyal their season ticket holder base is. And those season tickets are not cheap at all.
And that's part of the problem, though. They know that this fan base, a lot of the fan base is overly loyal. So they know that they have their money. So that's a frustrating thing, because when that part of the fan base doesn't fight back, nothing will happen. Like
it's like that with all sports, really.
No, but you've seen some cities where they have been able to make.
I mean, that's the way it is with all Philly teams because of the loyalty and the season ticket holders. And there's such a wait list for them. Nobody ever wants to give them up because they'll never get them back.
And I'm not telling people to give up their tickets, but I wouldn't spend money on I'm talking about me as a normal. I don't have season tickets. I'm not going to buy tickets because to me, when you
might be able to get them really cheap right now.
Well, you're right. But I don't want to go watch the product.
Right, exactly.
Nice. I mean, that's part of the problem. But I mean, let's be real. Like I said, if that's not going to happen, but that's where I'm at. I wish they would.
So I do have one more question with the Flyers right now. And we could kind of start wrapping that up. There is Carter Hart. We could probably agree he's probably the most valuable asset on this team right now, right? A great young goalie. He's only 23. He doesn't turn 24 till late next summer. He's got a late August birthday. I worry about him because goalie to me is a position where in all of sports where the mental aspect of it can come into play a lot. If you get really down on yourself, it can really affect your game. Can the struggles of this team, I don't want to use the word stunt his growth, but maybe reverse his growth or stop him from becoming the goalie that we all expect him to be? I kind of look at goalies to the same extent of like a great pitcher on a bad team. Like I go back to like Kurt Schilling when he was with the 94, 95, 96 Phillies, where he had to be absolutely perfect every single game. And if he gave up one run, he knew he was going to lose. Carter Hart knows if he gives up one goal, he's going to lose. And he's got to press a little bit. He's got to force things a little bit, start to make mistakes here and there. Do you worry about Carter Hart at all? And, his career moving forward, if this team we're going to use the word floundering, continues to flounder the way it is. And, he's given up a lot of goals lately.
I'm absolutely worried because I think Carter Hart, you mentioned, he's very young. Carter Hart, to me, besides Drew, is probably the closest player to being on an elite platform.
Right.
He has all the tools in the toolbox. You're right. The problem with Carter Hart right now, once again, if you look, there's kinks in the armor. The defense is playing shitty in front of him. All of a sudden, it goes hand in hand. He's giving up goals at I believe
at a much higher rate than he should be.
Correct. And he was playing out of his mind. But I was saying it. I said it on your show 2 weeks ago that Carter Hart could be in trouble if, maybe it wasn't your show. It was on a show.
On a show. I do so many, I can't remember one from the next.
That's the same as me. No, but I did say that Carter Hart could be in trouble because they're expecting him to carry this team, and he's 24. And when he
23, don't age him too much, Ed. He's only 23.
And when you have to do that on a continual basis, sooner or later, there's going to be a problem. Like you're going to start to struggle, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it play out right now, and I definitely
we've seen it with goalies with the Flyers for decades now. You have a great goalie, then all of a sudden the team starts to struggle. Their confidence goes down, and then all of a sudden it's really, really hard to get a confidence in a goalie back.
Yes, I mean, you're right. Confidence is the number one important thing for a goalie. Not, obviously.
The puck looks so much bigger when you're confident. And you see when you lose your confidence, it looks like a little tiny little thing coming at you, the little blur. So, yeah, I mean, it's something that concerns me a lot. And that's actually my biggest concern with this team right now is Carter Hart losing his confidence. And, I'm kind of holding my hat on the turnaround of this team on Carter Hart. And if he loses confidence, that's a big problem.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I'm like, I'm concerned. I love Carter Hart. I'm a Carter Hart truther. I get in Twitter battles about that too. Because people say, oh, he hasn't done anything, and
right,
he's not going to be anything, and that to me, those kind of people are haters. Like,
right.
Carter Hart has all the tools. Like, he has come into this year and drastically improved. Like, he was back to Carter Hart of 2019, which was
right.
at the top of his game.
Right.
And you used the word, I'm going to use it again, confident.
Yeah. He
was playing confident, but that was because the defense was playing better in front of him. The defense has a lot to do with the goaltending because, like I said, last year, everyone wanted to just say, oh, Carter Hart sucked. But the defense was one of the most atrocious units that we've ever seen in this city.
Right.
And unfortunately, right now, the defense has regressed just like the rest of the team. The defense was the strength. Even when they weren't scoring, they were still playing well. And you saw Carter Hart get those 2-1 wins that you're talking about. Now, when your offense isn't playing well and your defense shits the bed, that's a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, Carter Hart has to suffer for it. And yes, I agree. I hope he can get his confidence turned around, and I hope
mojo
team gets their head out of their ass and starts playing. Listen, I don't expect miracles. I don't expect 7 goals a game, but I expect a team that comes out with fire. I expect a team that has a plan, and they most definitely need to get that damn power play fixed because it sucks.
Yeah. Pico's going to drop that. It's not going to be the Pico power play. It's just going to be the power play after a while. So do the Flyers win tonight, or any of the next? We agree it's an easier schedule. The next 5-6 games. Do they get off the snide tonight? Do they get it off on Friday night against Vegas, Arizona on Saturday? When do you see this losing streak ending?
I think they get a win tonight.
Yeah.
Carter Hart will be in that, I believe. I have to look.
I mean, overall, over the next 5 or 6 games, you got the Devils twice, you got Vegas, Arizona, Montreal, and Ottawa. Do you think they can make a decent little, 4 on the road, but do you think they can win 2 or 3 of those games? Or?
I think they'll win 2. They'll win the one against the Devils tonight, and then maybe I don't see them beating Vegas.
Arizona's on the second night of a back-to-back, which is always tough in hockey. I actually think, if anything, they beat the Devils both times because they're going to get off the snide tonight, and then the Devils at home, first game at home, and after the losing streak, end it. I could see them winning both Devils games. Honestly,
I hope they win tonight. Like,
I can't believe it until I see it, though. I can't predict them to win because until a losing streak like this ends, you can't actually confidently predict it.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to say I hope they win because I don't think a win is the tell-all. I think they need to come out and play 60 minutes of hockey.
Yeah.
If they could come out tonight and show that, okay, we got to reset on the defense. We're kind of, we know we have to focus on that.
Right.
And hopefully Mike Yeo, like I said, I'm not a huge Mike Yeo guy, but I agree he does have experience. And I'm hoping that he looks at this team and tries to put people in the best positions to succeed because that's where
so cliche.
Well, that's where you're going to get, your improvements. That's where you're going to have your growth because right now you have to focus on your strengths to fix the weaknesses. You have to hone in on what are we doing wrong and what can we do to fix that? Have a plan. That's all I want. Because I already, where I'm at. I want a rebuild. So I think winning doesn't necessarily help that. I'm not saying I want them to tank and lose every game.
Right.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
But I want this team to be fixed for the long term. I don't want to just have a Band-Aid put on, a wound and then have
there's an infection going on under the skin. It's going to have the arm cut off eventually.
Exactly.
All right. So that was 40 minutes I got to. I said, let's try to get at least 30 minutes of hockey talk. We got it to 40 minutes. Much better job than I did on my own yesterday talking hockey for 10 minutes. Let's transition real quick to the Sixers because, again, they're playing tonight as well. I love it when the Flyers and Sixers play both nights. if I could eventually have my dream office set up in here where I do my shows, have multiple screens up so I can have all the games go at the same time, that's like the dream scenario. They play the Hornets again, which is really weird playing. It's like 2 games in Charlotte, over 3 days there. They struggled, but they won in overtime against a very shorthanded Hornets team a couple nights ago. The Hornets are now going through what the Sixers did. They got their 2 stars in health and safety protocols. They got 5 or 6 guys overall in health and safety protocols, and they still pushed the Sixers. Now, are you going to say, because I'm concerned that the Sixers, the hangover from being out because of COVID, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, those things are still lagging, but they still should have beat the Hornets handily because now they're missing their best guys. So I'm kind of curious, is it an excuse that they are still recovering and Joel Embiid saying, look, I'm still not 100%. Tobias Harris has said, I could barely breathe out there, plus he's dealing with a hip injury. Is that an excuse to, let go the other night? Or should this team, now that they're all there, everybody's playing, should have just handled the Charlotte Hornets, in my opinion? You can't let a guy like Kelly Oubre Jr. go off for 35 points, with LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier not there. So I'm a little concerned still about the Sixers, and that's going to lead me into talking about the trades and the Ben Simmons in a second. But do you accept that excuse that COVID is why they're struggling right now? Because I did it first, but then when the other team's missing so many players because of it as well, it shouldn't be the excuse then.
I mean, the human in me wants to accept it and be understanding.
I accepted it the first game or two.
I do think, I think with a player of Joel Embiid's stature and his size, and, we know that, his physical ability sometimes is kind of, I don't want to say pushed, but it takes a lot for him to get in shape.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying he's out of shape because of COVID, and he also
that type of
in shape because he still is struggling to recover.
Yeah,
he's even said that his symptoms are like the breathing issues are still there. He's flat out said that. But even an 80% Joel Embiid playing, an 80% Tobias Harris playing, they were missing Tyrese Maxey as well from a non health and safety protocol illness. But still, that team should have been good enough to easily win at 80% versus a team missing 5 players from their rotation, 2 of their starters, their 2 best scorers, their starting backcourt basically was out. So to me, where they have the excuse, they also have that counter to the excuse that they should have been able to beat this team even at 80%. So I don't know. It's an excuse, but it's an excuse I don't want to hear when you're going up against the Hornets.
I'm willing to give him a benefit of the doubt, Joel Embiid. And I think at the end of the day, the win is what's most important. And you saw Joel Embiid basically carry that team. Joel Embiid, to me, is a breath of fresh air because Joel Embiid is a generational player.
He is. He's absolutely a generational player.
Joel Embiid is a treasure. I love Joel. Honestly, Joel Embiid is the reason I'm actually back into watching basketball.
The one thing I will say that counters what I'm trying to say is, look, when the Sixers first lost everybody to health and safety protocols, those first 2 or 3 games where they were missing everybody, they played great. They didn't win all the games, but they hung around. They were running 7-man rotations out there. They had guys like Korkmaz and George Niang playing 45 minutes a game. These guys are 15-minute rotational pieces, and they were playing 45 minutes a game, and we were hanging in there. So Charlotte just getting these players into these protocols, the team's kind of rallying together at first. Maybe if tonight's a struggle, if tonight's the same situation as 2 nights ago, then I'm going to be more concerned. But, the first game against them, they're just kind of rallying together as a team. But now they've had more days to let it sink in that, they're going to be missing these guys for a couple of weeks and stuff. So I'm going to be really zoned in on tonight and how they take care of business tonight against the shorthanded, Hornets, especially if Tyrese Maxey plays.
I agree. I think they should come out tonight and stomp them.
They absolutely should
make a statement. Make a statement. Say, we are still kind of under the weather with the COVID, whatever. Listen, it's an excuse, but you're right. There comes a point where you have to draw a line. Like,
right.
So tonight, come out, play better. I mean, now that to me, a lot of that to me, and listen, I'm not, obviously, you say you're not a hockey guy. I'm not a basketball guy. But I do know the game enough to know that sometimes Doc Rivers has me puzzled.
He's got me puzzled on more than one occasion.
And I think with the Sixers, I think that's where Doc Rivers has to kind of, get in their grill a little bit and say, guys, like, not with the cameras, like, behind the scenes, like, say, guys, we need to play better. We're playing a team that has nobody, like we did beginning of the year. We have to come out and, that's where I expect Doc Rivers to have his team.
And they're in a really crucial part of the season because right now they got Charlotte tonight. Charlotte's a good team. They're like 13-12 or something like. They're right around, a 500 team. But after Charlotte tonight, then we got Utah at home, the Golden State Warriors, the Memphis Grizzlies, Miami Heat, and Brooklyn Nets.
Wow.
The following 5 games are all 5 against teams that could easily not just beat us, but crush us. I mean, all great teams. So I get concerned there. So tonight is almost a must win because you lose tonight, there's a chance that they fall below 500 in the next 5 or 6 games. So it's a big concern. But I want to real quick.
I had a quick question. No, just a quick question.
Ask away.
Where do you? So I know everyone always worries about Joel Embiid's health. Like, do you foresee him playing? Obviously, COVID makes this thing so different. Like, obviously, he was out because of that. But do you see him playing a full season with the way that we know his injury from last year?
Yeah, his body breaks down very easy.
Like,
we have to hope at this point, because we're going to talk about Ben Simmons in the trade and the rumors for a few minutes to wrap this show up. If they don't make a trade of Ben Simmons and they just keep this roster as is, he absolutely has to play almost every single game the rest of the year because he is the team. Maxey is still growing. He's still learning how to be the aggressive Maxey we saw while Joel was out. He doesn't know how to do that with Joel Embiid in the lineup. So there's still some growing pains there. But Joel Embiid absolutely has to play every game because right now he is the team. There is no other go-to option. Tobias Harris is having his worst season as a Sixer. He's not shooting as bad as he has at other points in his career, but at this point, he needs to step up and be that second option, and he's not. So there is no other option than Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is basically going to have to play at an MVP caliber level the rest of the season for them to even stay in contention, not even make a deep run or anything like that. And that brings up the trade. Ben Simmons, there's been a lot of rumors with Portland circulating. Their whole front office is in turmoil completely. And then rumors came out on Monday afternoon that Dame Lillard said, which, again, the rumors, until you hear Dame Lillard himself say it, which we learned with him wanting out of, everyone saying he wanted out of Portland. And then he flat out said, no, I don't want out of Portland. Till he says it, it's just a rumor. But that Dame Lillard wants to play with Ben Simmons, which on paper actually makes a lot of sense. It's the kind of guy that would thrive with Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard's a scorer. They need help on defense. Ben Simmons' defense would help. Ben Simmons can distribute and all the things that he does well complement Dame Lillard. So then you say, all right, so he wants to play with Dame Lillard. That means CJ McCollum would be the main piece coming back from Portland. And at first, and in the past, I've said, sure, I'll take CJ McCollum for Ben Simmons with other pieces, draft picks, other players from Portland. It's not a straight up swap. But then I was chatting with my buddy Brian through text message the other day. I'm like, how do you feel about CJ McCollum? He's like, well, what does that do to your rotation? Because then you have Tyrese Maxey, CJ McCollum, and Seth Curry. All 3 of them are small guards. You can't play all 3 of them at the same time. This isn't Villanova, Big East basketball. You can't play 5 guards at the same time. So what does that do to your rotation? It got me thinking maybe CJ McCollum is not a strong fit for the current team. If you trade for CJ McCollum, that means you're going to have to trade somebody else too to keep reconstructing this roster. So I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on CJ McCollum, on trading with Portland and that whole thing there. Which, by the way, before we answer, they did say yesterday that CJ McCollum now has a collapsed lung from an injury from Monday night, which some basic Google searching, they haven't released how serious it is, but a collapsed lung can be healed in a week to 2. I mean, it could be a serious long-term issue, but it's also something that he could be back on the court playing in a week or two. So it doesn't mean he's out for the rest of the season or anything like that.
I like CJ McCollum. He's a nice piece, but I agree with your friend that you were texting with. I think it wouldn't make sense for this current roster unless you had other plans of flipping somebody else or you already knew, what you were going to do. I think with Ben Simmons, like I've been saying it, like I think I know people want Daryl Morey just to pull the trigger, but I actually like that Daryl Morey's been patient with it because I mean, right now, like, let's face it, the organization holds the cards. Like, I'm not one of these Ben Simmons haters. Listen, like, I get it. If he has mental issues, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
I'm not one of these anti-Ben, but I do think that in order for this team realistically to move forward, something has to happen there. Like, either he traded or he comes back. Like, and I don't see him coming back. I just can't see the way that he's handled it, the way that organizations all together. I don't see how he can come back and play with these players. Like, I don't see how they would even respect the guy, like, after what he did to them, like, basically giving up on them. And so I don't see that scenario happening. I know, obviously I'm with Scott. I've heard Scotty plenty of his shows. I love listening to Scotty, by the way, with his Sixers stuff. And I've heard him say, like, hey, I would take a Ben Simmons back in a sec. I would take him back.
I would take him back as well. I know that. It's funny. We only got about 8 minutes left of the show, so I don't want to go on too many tangents. But I joked when Dame Lillard's rumors said that he wanted to play with Ben Simmons, I put out a tweet saying, I can't believe nobody on Twitter is jumping on the trade Joel Embiid to Portland for Dame Lillard and then bring back, Ben Simmons and have a Ben Simmons, Dame Lillard 6 team. Not saying that that's what I want to have happen. I just thought that was funny, and nobody's making that joke. But yeah, I mean, see, my thing is with it, and I got into it with somebody, not got into it, like had a debate with somebody the other day about this exact topic, is that he said, well, I'll wait 4 years, just like Daryl Morey said, if it takes 4 years. The problem is the longer you wait, every single month, every single week, every single year you wait to make this move, you're wasting more of Joel Embiid's prime. Yes, we agree he's this top level, extremely great talent, but at 7'2", 285 pounds, he's not going to have a 20-year career.
Yeah, the window is short.
The window is very short. You've got about a 2 to 3 year window right now to maximize. And this year was one of those years to max. Last year, this year, next year, that's your best window with Joel Embiid.
Agreed.
100%. If you wait too long, you're really hampering your opportunities with Joel Embiid, or you're putting at risk, maximizing that window. So I want a deal done this year, but I'm willing to wait till the trade deadline's not till February.
I was just going to say that was my next question. When
I think it's February 10th or 12th. It's right before Valentine's Day, the trade deadline. And as he continues to wait, you see Toronto is talking about selling, and selling off pieces. You look at Indiana now; they're talking about moving LeVert, Sabonis, LeVert, Sabonis, and Brogdon. T.J. McConnell just went out for the year with an injury, so their season's starting to waste away. As the season goes on, Sacramento's continuing to flounder. So you got, Buddy Hield or DeAndre. So the longer he waits till the deadline, more teams become available. But you're also basically wasting this season to an extent.
I liked your Toronto proposal.
Yeah, it brought some good and negative comments and all, but I think Toronto as a suitor, there's a lot. Whether you liked my proposal or not, there's a lot of combinations from Toronto that could fit with this team. So I think Toronto's a really good fit. I think Indiana's a really good fit as well. And while I like on paper CJ McCollum as a basketball player, now that we have Maxey starting to excel and Seth Curry starting to, go from more than just a shooter to a really good basketball player, I think CJ McCollum might not be the perfect fit. Now, Scotty disagreed. I asked Scotty his opinion on that, and he said you move Maxey to the bench, he runs the bench unit, and you start Curry and CJ. You still have either Matisse or Danny Green starting at the small forward. And I get all that, but neither CJ McCollum or Seth Curry are are not as good of a point guard as Tyrese Maxey. They're both shooting guards.
How legit are these rumors? Like, I really...
Well, I mean, which rumors? The Dame Lillard one or the CJ McCollum one?
Dame Lillard.
I mean, it was some NBA account tweeted, and everybody ran with it. I don't know about that, but I do know the CJ McCollum rumors are very, very serious. Okay. And then you got people following him on Instagram, seeing that on Monday night he went and followed every single Sixer on Instagram. He went and followed the Sixers mascot on Instagram. So there's those little nuggets, a little trail you follow. Ooh, a piece of candy.
The tea leaves.
Candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. You follow the candy to the truth. So I think it's a really strong rumor, but I think the longer you hold out, the more other opportunities come around. And even if you want CJ McCollum, if there's other teams there, that's more in the bargaining chips with Portland. Yeah,
I mean that always becomes like a rat race, who's going to have the most ammo to get a guy. I mean,
and don't rule Oklahoma City out. I mean, they got a couple young pieces that would be nice. They got 17 first-round draft picks over the next 1 year, I think it is. I think they literally own the NBA draft next year. So that's another team that could use somebody like Ben Simmons.
Has anybody heard from Ben Simmons? Is he still being fined?
I mean,
What's the latest news?
The last home game, there was a video of him shooting on the court before the team came out for the pregame shoot-around, and that was about it. He's still MIA for the most part. So, yeah, it is what it is. Someone did show that it's $6.8 million he's been fined so far. So
I saw that.
Yeah, that's about the end of that. Do they win tonight against Charlotte?
Oh yeah, I think
you're calling a Philadelphia clean sweep tonight.
Yep, I think we need it.
We definitely need it. I want to come on because tomorrow you're going to be my guest co-host again tomorrow. We're going to recap the Flyers game. We're going to recap the Sixers game. Tomorrow will be the last time we're going to break down the Thursday night football game, but the entirety of Week 14 of the NFL tomorrow. So, yeah, I want that positivity. I want a clean sweep so we have some positivity to talk about tomorrow morning for sure.
Absolutely.
So, again, Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been great. That's Jason Voorhees. I'm Phil Stiefel. Tonight, Trending for 4 quarters. I got my man, Mitch Bernstein from the Burn with Mitch show. We're going to be talking Eagles, and we're going to talk a little baseball. He's a big baseball guy, and I want to talk a little baseball with him, Hall of Fame, the lockout, and stuff like that. So make sure you're tapped in to DSM Media. Subscribe on YouTube. The road to 500 continues. So make sure you're doing that.
Let's get 500 so Phil has to shave that beard. I can't wait. I want to see it.
You don't want to see that. I'll be growing that thing back as fast as I can after it happens. There's no rules on how long it has to stay off for. So make sure you're tapped into DSM Media. Make sure you do it. We appreciate all your support. We're brought to you, like I said, beginning of the show, by Manscaped, leader in men's grooming products. Manscaped.com. Use promo code TRENDING at checkout. Get you 20% off and free shipping. We greatly appreciate the support as always. See, that's the name right there. Trending in the AM. We are here every single Monday through Friday morning. Can't beat it. What's that?
Taking over Philly sports.
That's right. Taking over Philly sports. One day at a time. Everybody, thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another great episode. Jason will be right by my side again tomorrow morning. Everybody have a great day, and let's go Flyers and let's go Sixers.
Go Flyers, go Sixers.